We're good. Hello, ScareLA! This is a really exciting group right here because, and what's fun is, I've done all their experiences because I love interactive theater, haunts, everything. It's awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so we're just gonna have a little chat here and then we'll have room for questions. I saw an I love Josh Randall sign. Is that what that is? That's so nice. I love Randall. Boom.
Yes.
That's so sweet. Okay, so
we do too.
Let's go down the line right now and let's talk about our experiences a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about what you were working on. You worked on the Castle Rock Hulu experience. Who went to Comic-Con? Anybody went to Comic-Con? Okay. So did you go through the Castle Rock experience? Blew my mind. I loved it. Yes. It was so cool. Okay, so Gypsy, first tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've worked on, and then we'll touch on Castle Rock.
Okay. Well, hello. I'm Gypsy Taylor. The accent is from Australia, and but I live in LA, and I work in film, and I do production and costume design. And I've worked on some amazing projects, including designing the Babadook, which I hear is a big...
She designed the Babadook. Come on.
I love doing creature design, and I love horror movies, and I love haunts. I'm such a geek. And so I was approached by Hulu and the show Castle Rock to invent and create the Castle Rock experience for Comic-Con and do a haunted house experience, which was a dream job, to say the least, because I'm a little bit of a Stephen King fan. And yes, that's what we did.
And hopefully a Monster Squad fan.
And a Monster Squad fan.
I mean, who's a Monster Squad fan here also? Boom. That's right, they have a documentary that's coming out this year called Wolfman's Got Nards. Gotta check it out.
Hello, I'm Holly Lander. I am one part of Pencilscope Productions, which is a production company started by Gypsy, and we're the creative team behind doing the Castle Rock Haunt, and I've been working with Gypsy for a year on that, and getting into film recently, and I'm actually an art curator and have made loads of pop-ups in the past, so in London. So that's me. Yeah.
Got mine. I got mine. Hi, I'm Dana Montgomery. I'm an actor, and in 2015 I started ScareLA with my friend Justin Fix, and
ScareLA fans, by the way.
And it was just sort of a bucket list item for Justin, and he asked me to help out, and became this passion that sort of like exploded. We looked at each other on Halloween night in 2015 and said, we've got to do this. We're going to do this again. And so we did it again the next year. Second season of ScareLA, then created a show called The Willows, which is a 2-hour immersive, Willows fans. And we 2-hour immersive dinner. It's like a modern twist on a murder mystery dinner with a sort of sinister family, and that ran for a year and turned into a VR experience, which came out this summer. And then last year we worked with Amazon Studios to promote their TV show Lore, and that became a 6-week-long run of an immersive experience that was about an hour. And then we've just been doing a bunch of stuff since then. Like we worked on an escape room at Comic-Con for a show called Sacred Lies. Yeah. And we're working on our show for this fall.
That's awesome. Josh Randall.
Hello. I'm Melanie. So I'm Josh. I am the director and co-creator of a show called Blackout that started in 2009. That started in New York and then has transferred to a bunch of other places. After Blackout opened, I've worked for, within context of this panel, creating haunted houses for movies like The Purge 2, Insidious, The Strangers 2, and also got the amazing opportunity to work with Holly and Gypsy on the Castle Rock experience with Hulu at Comic-Con this year.
That's awesome. Let's start with Josh and work our way back. So Josh, you've done so many incredible experiences. I mean, Blackout is one of the most insane things that was out there. I think you really were the first extreme haunt that I've ever heard about. I did a lot of research for haunters, and the more research we did, we realized it was like, wow, Blackout was the originator of that. Go ahead. Do you have a?
Well, yeah, I think to a certain extent within the haunted house community, but you can find versions of extreme theater, like sort of what we think of now as extreme haunts, dating really far back, and there have been performance artists and theater artists that have sort of been mining that territory. And I think we just sort of updated it, dropped it within the haunted house context, and the rest kind of happened from there. So it's not, there is a history there.
It's true, but it's funny because especially because yours at the time when it first came out, it was Blackout Haunted House in the title, and I think that was the first that I ever heard of where someone had to sign a waiver to go in. You know, and now that's like the thing. Everyone goes to things where you sign a waiver to go through the experience. Now, you've done that, but you've done these great IPs. Your Strangers experience was so awesome. Anyone here do the Strangers experience? That was so much fun. What I'm loving about these experiences is that they're the ultimate trailer for the movie. I saw that movie because I went through your experience. Now, when you made the Strangers experience, did you watch the movie? What was the process? Because it was incredible.
First of all, thank you. It was an amazing show to work on. It happened really, really fast. As these experiences tend to happen, you just don't have a lot of time. I was able to see the movie in advance. I was able to read the script as well. But one of the biggest things about the Strangers experience is that we kind of wanted to play off a lot of the themes that were brought about in The Strangers 1. Because The Strangers 2 wouldn't have opened by the time people went through our show. So you sort of want to play off of what people are going to walk in expecting and then kind of throw a curveball at them. So in truth, The Strangers 1 was actually a little bit more of an inspiration than the actual sequel was. But again, you just sort of watch the movie, come up with what resources you have at hand, and then kind of work backwards from there.
So cool because they recreated the trailer park, and you see the trailer park, and you have to run inside, you slam the door, and someone's trying to break in to get to you while you're trying to do something else. You have this like kind of escape room part where you're trying to find something to get out while they're trying to get in. Whenever you're looking for something while someone's coming after you, it's so terrifying.
Well, one of the things with the trailer park that was one of the goals of the whole experience was to get people as physically close to the action as possible, and we wanted it to have like a genuine amount of action, so we hired a stunt choreographer and a fight choreographer, and there was this kick-ass sort of like fight scene in the living room if you had seen it. And I think being so close, like literally you can reach out and touch actors that are going through this like really hardcore fight scene, is just like an incredibly palpable and like exciting experience. And we just wanted it to be fast and kind of in your face and like really aggressive, and it happened.
And you came up with so many unique scares that I have not seen in the haunt before, like when the actor put her fingernails underneath my fingernails and clicked up, and I was like, "Wah!" It's so gross. It's so gross. Even thinking about it, I'm like, "Wah!" How did you come up with that? What are you sitting around like doing weird things to your fingernails?
No, the actors came up with that. You work with people that you trust, and you work with people that you know can elevate the experience. When you don't have a lot of time to prepare something, your best bet is to surround yourself with people that you know will add to the experience, so that you bring people on board and let them do the good stuff that they do. And it's just sort of a testament to working with good people and making sure that you hire a really good team.
One more question about that, because you worked with the actors also at the Castle Rock experience, and there's a lot of actors that were working on it. I was surprised at how many people were in, over 15 actors in an experience at Comic-Con, a pop-up. What is your process? What are you looking for in an actor?
It's a tough thing to answer. I mean, you look for somebody that you can trust. You look for somebody that genuinely has the audience's best interest in mind. You don't want that actor that's really there to really scare the shit out of people, because that's a difficult person to trust in a room by yourself with somebody else. So you look for that, and then you look for people that are adaptable, that are gonna just sort of add to the experience and have fun in the process.
It's awesome. Thank you so much. Now, lore. What was the process? I love the lore podcast.
Same here.
It's so great. So, okay, so tell me about this process. You're a fan of the lore podcast. Amazon approaches you, and then how do you go through that daunting task? There's like so many episodes of lore to work off of.
Yeah.
How do you figure out how you're going to tell a story with all these stories in one location?
Yeah, that was a huge challenge of lore. Was it was this very popular podcast, which thankfully I was already a really big fan of, and I'd listened to every episode up until that moment. So I was like, yes, I know this source material. I'm comfortable with it, and the podcast was being turned into a TV show, and it was our job to sort of become a living trailer for that TV show. So they already picked out 6 episodes from the podcast episodes to feature. So we didn't have to worry about that. But it happened very fast, as Josh and I were talking about earlier, and we weren't able to see the TV show ahead of time. We got to see a rough cut of one of the episodes, and we had 30 minutes in a locked room to go through all the scripts and write down everything that we could and pull notes from it. And that was it. That's all we got. So
this sounds like the escape room of plotting a
right?
show. What do you mean? You had 30 minutes.
Terrifying.
What was that about? Why did they?
They were very protective of it. The show was not finished at all by the time we'd started working on it. They were under like a huge deadline, so it was really up to us to sort of create these worlds and make somehow these 6 episodes come together and make sense. So I'm the writer for our company, and so I went back and I listened to all of the podcast episodes that the TV episodes were based on, and I just wrote down anything and everything that I connected with, or that I was inspired by or scared by, and we really looked at this experience being inspired by the podcast and not really holding too closely to what the TV show was going to be, because we honestly didn't really know what the TV show was really going to be like. And so we pulled from that source material, found what inspired us and moments that we liked, and decided to lean into the idea of lore being, a collection of basically scary stories of vampires and werewolves and where that comes from, and use the idea of storytelling as what connects all of these stories. And if that makes any sense, and sort of go in almost with the lore experience, we went sort of in chronological order of the stories that we were dealing with, starting with the oldest sort of like fairy tale cottage into ending with a very rough sort of werewolf-ish serial killer, to become some whole experience like you were being told a story.
It was so much fun, because I like how you started your show. He had such a unique start of lore. Who went to lore? That opening was so mesmerizing. Who was that actress? Was it Janice?
Yannicka Olin is her name.
I see her on Instagram, so I'm like, is that Janice? No,
Yeah.
Yannicka.
Yeah, it's spelled similarly.
Whatever, I believe that. Yannicka. So that was such an interesting, almost kind of David Lynch-like opening.
Yeah,
that was
that's kind of our vibe.
It was
a little bit.
creepy and fun, where she was kind of luring you in, and there was this great room where you're sitting in a room where a guy is typing on a typewriter. That was you?
Me.
Okay, that was perfect. That was such a great way to. I've done so many experiences. I've never seen one that was quite like that, where the storyteller, now that I know it's you, that's
Me.
what a great idea, that the storyteller of the experience you're going through is telling you a story on the typewriter while you're. It was such a great way of like almost putting us in a trance before it started.
Well, that's one of the things we think about when doing immersive theater is how you immerse your audience into the experience. And for us, it's really important that's a huge part of the show, is getting everybody into it, right? And so we want to set up an expectation, set up a mood, set up sort of this feeling before you go into the show. And we were in the basement of a building called The Reef in downtown. That's I think it's called a creative habitat, and it's not the scariest looking building. It's sort of a cute, trendy sort of office building. So we were thinking, how do we get guests who are arriving at a trendy office building to be put into an environment that includes a real woods, like a real forest and coffins and all these things, and have them buy it. So you need to ease guests into that. So for us, we were setting sort of a tone, and literally you were walking into this darkness, so you could hopefully forget the rest of the world and slowly be eased into, oh my God, now I'm in a forest and I buy it. Now I'm here, I'm fully immersed. So
that's what's so interesting about what they're all doing too, is that do you guys chart something out? This is for everybody, and then we'll get right into you guys. do you chart the emotional impact of your experience? It's like, I know like when they do 3D movies, they have a depth script where it's like they want to know the ones that are really good, they're going to go, this is where we want to go extreme because it's going to maximize this emotion. Do you guys look at it that way, where you're looking at building suspense, hitting your high scares, making it more disturbing? Do you think of it that way as you're putting the story together?
I think we think of it as sort of a build. So like I was just saying before, we know that there is some sort of checking in process of literally like showing up to the show and being slowly immersed. So we kind of see it as a build. And with the Willows in particular, we definitely had, at least from the behind the scenes point of view, we had a definite Act 1 and definite Act 2 moment. And there was something that happened halfway through the show that for us and for the cast, we knew that, all right, the first half is gonna be like a little weird, but the second half, once that moment happens, things are gonna get crazy and keep ramping up. And for us, as we're crafting a show for this fall, we have a similar sort of setup that we feel like really works, where you get everybody into it, the scares sort of like ramp up, something happens in the middle that sort of changes things, and then things go skyrocket and then sort of slowly fall as you're leaving the experience. And that's something that we didn't intentionally go after, but something that we noticed worked after just trial and error, at least for our type of storytelling.
That's great. And you, Josh, how do you look at your storytelling and your experiences?
I tend to think more about like heart rate and physical sensations over emotions, and I hope emotions follow the physical sensations, but maybe Holly and Gypsy know this from Castle Rock, but like I guess when I'm working, I tend to think about like we need to get their heart rate up here, so like faster, faster, faster. Okay, here's where we need them to slow down for a moment. Here's where we sort of need to like start the ramp up.
We played with that with space as well, so we would do things like we'd throw people like into singular rooms where they were on their own, and then we'd throw 10 people into a huge space and then throw them again into a bathroom and then put them in a maze. And so you were like constantly playing with this spatial relationship to make the guest experience go through that narrative and like the feeling of what, you know, so it's a huge collaboration effort between the narrative and the space and what the guest experience is, which we're always thinking about.
Oh, it's true, and I love that there's such a wide variety, especially with you guys on the stage here, because your stuff is so much more surreal and with intense moments. And Josh, what you guys are bringing is definitely, there's more of a primal edge to it. You know, I just love that there's such a wide variety of storytelling in these experiences. So what did you get to work with? Because you have with Castle Rock, the entire Stephen King universe. Yeah. What did they show you? What were you preparing with before you made that massive experience?
Nothing. Yeah. Much like Daniel, we had one episode to watch because it was still, we were under heavy NDA. It was a rough cut. You know, like they're very secretive about it. They're like, there's this new show coming out, but we want you to know everything about the show, but we're only going to give you one episode. And then they gave us all the behind the scenes photos, which was like a visual representation. So we sort of like pieced together the behind the scene photos to sort of understand what was going on. Much later down the track, they gave us script.
20,000 behind the scenes photos.
20,000!
You looked at one episode and they showed you 20,000 photographs.
Yeah. And they wouldn't say what episode it was from. So we just sort of like went, okay, well there's a creepy bathroom scene with a guy who we think works in a bed and breakfast, and he's like got all these mannequins, like what do we do with that?
And even weirder, they did provide all the scripts.
But way later.
No, but only one person could read them.
That's right.
Me. Like there was no rhyme or reason to it. Yeah, it was very weird. Like you should have been the one to read the script.
Yeah, no, it didn't
whatever.
get it. But what the great thing was is that it was a Stephen King show, and Hulu were really keen to like put Stephen King Easter eggs in there throughout the whole thing. So we got to play with like Shining and The It and Shawshank Redemption, and we planted little misery things in the house, and so like we really went hard on Stephen King.
I love that opening so much. I put the opening on my Instagram because it was so clever. They had these two actors, they're in front of like the bed and breakfast, and they're just standing there staring at you, and this music is getting louder and louder and louder and louder, and it builds and builds and builds, and all of a sudden they go, hey, welcome, how you doing? It was such a weird thing. Then you went inside and they start splitting the audience up into rooms. I got room 237, I got the Shining room, but Well, I just love that idea that you came up with. There are all those interesting rooms. What were the other rooms? I didn't get to do them.
Well, originally, if you watch the show on Hulu at the moment, there's the opening title sequence refers to 8 films very subtly. So there's It, Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, Cujo, favorite, Stand By Me, what else?
Needful Things.
Needful Things. Oh, Needful Things is like heavy on the Misery. And so we had it like, originally we had 8 rooms, separation rooms that were themed by what was in the opening title sequence. But as we got further down the track, we realized we weren't able to have, the legal department stepped in and said, actually, you're only allowed to have Shawshank, It, and Shining. So we had to like change the design over and over and over again. But originally, yeah, that was a big thing, like, because I was really into separating the people, and so was Josh. Because I love getting a group together and then just like sending them on their own. They don't know where the hell they're gonna go. And to have it be like a Stephen King themed room to me, and then like everyone would come out the end and be like, what room did you get? You did it. You were like, I got the Shining room.
No, I did. It was so much fun. And the other thing that you guys did that was so interesting is that I've never seen at an experience was that there was a part where you could see a car going through water that was outside. And you looked at it, you're like, oh, it says Castle Rock Hulu, and it's a real car going through a pool, and it's like the second half of the car. So it's like the trunk and the wheels, and you're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Then when you're inside the experience, as you're walking, the headlights go on, and there's the car, and there's water projected above you, and it's like, oh my God, everyone at the same time, we all clicked, we're like, the car in the water, we're under that car right now. And it was such a bizarre and surreal. How did that process even happen? That's such a crazy idea.
In that first episode that we got, the warden from the show commits suicide by jumping off a cliff into the lake in his Lincoln. We know that he works at Shawshank Prison, and he decapitates himself on the way down off the cliff. And so we thought, wouldn't it be great to get that Lincoln, get the Shawshank sticker, have it diving into something. And when we got to the location, there's actually a huge fountain at Comic-Con, but it's only a foot deep. So we had to trick it. We cut the car in half right at the windshield, and then put it on a steel plate, so it looked like it was like way deeper into the fountain than it actually was. And then we had it playing the opera music that is playing in the show when he kills himself, and we had the back wheel going, the brake lights on, so it felt like he just crashed. I pitched for a decapitated body to be in the front seat, but Hulu did not like that idea.
Wouldn't be able to see it anyway, because it was so cool, because as the headlights hitting you and the blue light, and all of a sudden you're going, oh, that's water. That was so cool. There's also an interesting moment that I thought was so cool towards the end. Wait, this experience is only at Comic-Con, right? It's not going to tour.
4 days.
It was just for 4 days. Okay, so I'm not spoiling anything by saying. So towards the very end, there was this great part where we got to look at TV screens with night vision of the group now going through after us, going through the room that we just did.
Yeah.
That was such a great idea.
That was intercut with real footage from the show of the Shawshank Prison with all the creepy inmates getting killed by the Bill Skarsgård character. So it was like you were in the show in the prison with them.
That was such a crazy idea, because it was like, wait a minute, we just did that, and then we saw little bits of the show, and then, I don't know, was there a live camera in there too? And there's a live camera showing the other group getting scared too.
Yeah.
There was such a great, weird experience. And it was, I don't know, for a pop-up at Comic-Con, if it wasn't a pop-up at Comic-Con, I would still say, what a great experience.
Yeah.
It was just so cool that like, in such a short period, what was the amount of time that you guys had to put the whole show together?
It'd been like 2-3 months. Yeah.
Probably about 3 months, and maybe two hardcore months of like, game is on, make it happen.
Yeah.
I just want to say something super fast about the under the water sequence with the car and the car in the under the water thing. That was the moment when I was meeting with these ladies in creative meetings where I was able to sort of step back and be like, what? We're gonna put a car in a lake and cut it in half and do it? Holy mother. Just to sort of say that when you're certain projects, you don't have budgets and you have to be that much more creative, and then sometimes you have these really big budgets and you can just pay people to do all this cool stuff for you, and then sometimes that like melds together, and that's what it was like working with these two, where we had budget for it, but the level of creativity was just off the charts in what they were bringing to the table.
It's so cool because you really have run the gamut. I mean, with Blackout being in pitch dark in the very first start with garbage bags as walls, to then always evolving and building and doing the great Purge show that you did with Blumhouse. Remember Purge Live Fear the Night? I loved that show. That was so interesting.
I didn't even know Josh. I went through that and I got the special experience on my own where they put a hood on my head and like dragged me somewhere, I don't know where, I had to sign a waiver. And then I met him and I was like, you made me do that.
I absolutely love that. This is so great. It's such an interesting team up here. Now, we'll get into some other stuff, but first, before we forget, what are you guys working on next?
You've got 2-bit circus.
Yeah, so right now I'm the event and programming manager for a place called 2-Bit Circus that's going to be opening in a couple of weeks. Technically on September 7th, it's going to open to the public. It's a 50,000 square foot warehouse chock full of VR, escape rooms, robot bartenders, full food and beverage, reimagined arcade games, reimagined carnival games, sort of like a new age Chuck E. Cheese for adults with a hardcore electronic technological slant to it. I'm personally responsible for integrating all immersive theater programming into the park. As people will find over the next 6 months or so, we're going to start integrating and introducing a lot of the more popular working companies in LA right now are starting to build experiences just for the park. So we'll have a lot of metagames, a lot of sort of escape room, puzzle-y type of experiences, and yeah, that's what I'm working on.
And you have a robot that's a bartender.
Yeah, yep.
That's
yes,
awesome.
we do.
Fun. We currently have the Willows on VR. If you guys have an Oculus Go headset, download the Willows on the Amaze app. It's really fun. Yeah. And we are in full force working on Creep, which is happening this fall. We have a beautiful, huge space downtown, and tickets go on sale right after Labor Day, and we'll be running through the fall. So.
That's awesome. It's so interesting because when I first saw your first show, the first Creep you did, it was so interesting because you had this nice interactive theater part of it, nice traditional haunt part. You did something that was really cool where we had to hide in a box and there's a murderer that's killing someone and we're all watching from different perspective from the box and none of us knew what was going to happen next. And you have these great moments too where you're splitting up the groups with different actors to have different stories being told to them, different experiences.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to see you go from that to a dinner theater type experience to lore. I mean, it's really cool that you get to have such an expanding universe of immersive experiences.
Yeah, so we're excited. You know, we've been working on a bunch of different stuff, but we're kind of excited to go back to our roots a little bit. We feel like with Creep, you know, it was our first show, and has like a special place in our heart. And it's very much, yeah, for us, it's very important that our guests are split up and have individual experiences at different tracks that they go on. And we love the feeling of not knowing what to expect next. And I can promise you that Creep this fall is all of those things. It's gonna be really weird. It's gonna be really fun.
Awesome, that's so exciting.
Oh, tomorrow.
Oh yeah, well, tomorrow we're doing a Purge mask making course because Gypsy made some masks for the new Election Day Purge. And then on the books, we want to do our own haunt, don't we? So we're looking for places, we've got some ideas for a haunt possibly coming up this year.
Yeah. We want to do a haunted tiki haunt. Oh, I can't tell you!
Let's all in here that she... Look, it's a secret that she wants to do a tiki haunt. We'll just wipe it from our memories.
It's just between us friends.
That's it. That's it. We just don't need
But
to
come
share.
to the Purge making class tomorrow because that'll be fun. We're going to make our own battle mask.
I love the idea of a tiki haunt. I love that idea. That's a great idea. That's a great idea. Oh my god.
And then I'm very busy for the month of October just visiting all these other haunts. That's all I do. I don't actually work in October. I just take the month off. Well, for me, like in Australia, Halloween is not a very big thing. It's very much a big American culture. And about 10 years ago, this park opened up in New Zealand called Spookers. And from Australia to New Zealand is an international flight, might I remind you. And my friends and I would take an international flight twice a year to go to their theme park because one half is a cornfield where they chase around with chainsaws and all that good stuff. And then when the cornfield dies, you go into an old nursing home and they chase you around there. And there's a documentary made about spookers because like you do not sign a waiver, they can touch you. I'm surprised nobody's died. It is like the most amazing thing ever. That, for me, that was like my first experience. But when I moved here to the States, The Purge was the one that really got me. I was like, if they're all like this, I want in. That was for me.
Well, I just moved here a year ago, so Gypsy took me around to pretty much every single haunt possible last year. Because the same, in London we hardly have anything. We've got a few things, but not really, nothing on the scale as here. And I think my favourite one last year was, well, Universal is obviously amazing, and the Shining Maze was, I was shocked when you go into the maze at the end and it's cold. I just didn't even know, I mean, that it could be like that. Yeah, it blew my mind. But yeah, I think that was my favourite from last year. It was great.
Before we did Creep, I had very little immersive. I didn't even know it existed, honestly, before we had done that. And I remember what really spoke to me was there used to be at Pierce College, there was a Creatures of the Corn sort of maze, and there was something about it being like pitch black, just running through a corn maze that was like literally just corn stalks.
That's what the spookiest one is.
It's just like, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's like anything can happen, and there's something about, you know, being in an actual location and using that location, which is something we always try to do with a lot of our shows. Is like, the show's going to take place in a creepy house. Let's have a really creepy house, like a real creepy house.
Yeah.
So that we used to go every year, and it's closed now. But
It's in the opening montage for my movie. That corn maze with the giant monster roaring, and that one scare in the cornfield. That was
my favorite.
I filmed the last year they ever did it. It was great. I love
so
that.
Great. I love that.
What about you, Josh?
I don't know. I wish I had a really good scary one like you guys have. I don't know. It's hard for me to get scared, I guess. So mine isn't scary, but I'm obsessed with this guy right now. His name is Paul E. Amori, and he has this show called the Paul E. Amori Casino and Burlesque. Yeah, that's what it's called. And he ran for mayor last year. Like, he actually ran for mayor. And his platform is love. And the whole point of the show is you're there to find a queen for the king, Paul Amori. But he really just sort of like exploded the parameters of the actual performance, and he literally ran for office. And I feel like in a sort of next level Ziggy Stardust kind of way, I've just been super intrigued by that, and I think it's a really cool kind of like next level thing to do from what we're the sandbox we're all playing in, with everything that's going on right now in our country and with our government, that it's like, let's take it, you know, a step up and try to run for office as a character. It's insane. So I'm kind of obsessed with that.
Yeah, politics really is the next level of fear.
True.
Before we take questions, and I want to make sure we get to some questions, can you, each one of you, give one bit of advice to someone that's thinking about doing an immersive experience? They're thinking about creating their own immersive experience. What's the one bit of advice you'd give them?
Don't. Just kidding.
Make sure you give yourself a lot of lead-up time.
Yeah.
A lot, more than you think, double it. Double how long you think it will take to make.
I guess my piece of advice is something Josh and I were just talking before about how sometimes you need that lead up time, and sometimes it doesn't happen and things happen very quickly. And we've had many an experience where there is a location or something that happens a week or two before we're supposed to like go up, and we always sort of say you want to honor your like the faults, or honor sort of the errors. So if you're dealing with a space problem, there's a problem with your space, you want to highlight that problem and use it to your advantage and make it work, as opposed to trying to cover up a problem.
I think so you're saying honor the space, and that if you don't have a lot of space, call attention to that.
Yeah, and like use your space to your advantage. Use the space to your advantage.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because Has anyone ever done Zombie Joe's Underground Theater?
Yeah.
Okay, no space. There's no space, and that guy, Jordan, does such a good job of recreating. He's really a genius with that space.
You trick people with the acting, and then what we do as a creative director, you take that space and you just warp people's minds into believing you're somewhere else. That's a very magic thing.
You're right. I mean, the fact is, the best entertainment always comes from the most interesting limitations. When you think of it that way. You don't. Some of the scariest films, the most successful independent horror films of all time, were the lowest budget ones, where they just came up with their own creative problem solving to limitations. So
I was going to say, my advice is going to be, there is never time and there is never money. And the best creative stuff comes out of that, because you get people like us and you and everybody here at ScareLA who are just like passionate about the genre. I just love the genre. So like, if I don't sleep, if I don't eat, it's fine, because I love it. Like,
So
I'm
good.
crazy, but I love it. So
It's
that's
so
what you need.
I mean, look, you going through all these pop-ups too, and you know they have no time to set up,
Nobody does.
and looking at what they did with their limitations to create a universe is so great. Any questions? Any questions to the audience?
Pennywise?
Well, right over here.
No, I was kidding. Pennywise isn't talking.
I mean, that was a realistic thing that could have happened. Gypsy,
Yes.
as the creator, as the designer of the Babadook, I'm just curious what it was like for you when the Babadook became an accidental gay icon.
Oh, I love that
How much
story.
fun was that for you?
It's so fun, because I'm a huge advocate of anything to do with pride, and most of my friends are gay and drag queens, and so when it happened, it was a mistake by Netflix, as we all know, and I just thought it was just amazing how quickly it got embraced by such a wonderful community, and how much joy they were like giving the Babadook. And there was this, the Babadook is fucking terrifying, and so the fact that they like just embraced this outsider and embraced everything he stood for and just made it a part of the community, to me was just like pure joy. Pure joy. I love it.
Why can't the Babadook be gay?
Yeah. He lives in a closet.
Oh my God.
I met with Ryan Turek, he's the VP of Blumhouse, and he goes, we need to have a coffee and we need to talk about how the Babadook and Pennywise are in love. And I went, okay, let's do that.
Well, I like this whole new real erotic fan fiction going
Yeah.
on here. I like that.
I'm into it 100%.
The best are reading through the comments that people have, are debating whether he's gay or not, and the guy's like, look at his fabulous hats. And like, it's really like, that thread is
Fuck
so
it,
much
he's
fun.
gay. Let's just settle it right here.
She designed him to be gay. Okay. Anyone else have a good question? Why haven't I put the pressure on you? Forget it's a good question. You have a question. Anyways, do you have a question? You don't have to.
So I have a question in regards to Blackout. Has there been a time when someone who, for example, would try to overcome their fear of the dark, try to experience Blackout, and then it would just completely backfire?
Yeah, it happens probably more regularly than you might think. It sort of depends what you think of as backfiring. But I personally have gotten into a ton of fights with people who become very aggressive. You see people go into like panic attack mode. You see people go into like self-defense mode, which is a little bit more scary because they just sort of shut down and it's all about like trying to get your eyes. So that's always been disturbing.
You say they trying to get your eyes?
Yeah, when you're like, when they teach you in like, like Walking Home Alone, like don't get raped class, like just like get them in the eyes, like grab their balls.
Use a Three Stooges technique.
Yeah, well, you could, but they're so aggressively going. I mean, okay, in truth, there is one story that I have from 2013 when we did The Purge.
Yeah.
And there was one woman in particular, the first moment of the show, you went up a thing of stairs, you rounded a corner, somebody sort of grabs you by the shoulders and pushes you against the wall and goes through the whole, do you have epilepsy, do you have asthma, do you have that whole deal? And she just reacted so strongly to being pushed up against the wall that, I mean, she literally just went blank. And I ended up, this is a terrible story, but I sort of had to hold her neck against the wall and try to get as far back from her as possible because she really aggressively was trying to scratch my face. And we had to call
That
the
was
police,
me.
and it
It
was a
was
whole
me.
thing.
Sorry,
so
Jon.
I know.
So I ask, you know,
I wanted to do it now in front of everybody.
what's the advice for someone
I
who wants to
knew it was
immersive
you.
experience? He says don't, and now we know why. They're trying to gouge his eyeballs out. They're trying to scratch his face off. This is a real. Actually, did anyone have a freak out in lore that?
Oh my gosh, we have all kinds. Every year, somebody, like multiple people, freak out, and what we have more than often is people who, for the Willows, we just have people that either show up on drugs or very drunk, and they will just literally just start throwing up or pass out
Oh, God.
in the show. It happens. People pee on the set every year. Every year, somebody's peed and thrown up. Every single show. Yeah. And guess who has to clean that up?
There you go. Why wasn't that on Netflix? We did have throw up. Okay, that's enough. We didn't. It was already.
People freak out.
Yeah.
People do freak out. Great shirt, by the way. Any other questions? Any other questions? All right, cool. No? Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining us. And enjoy ScareLA. Can someone get a group picture of us?
Oh, yeah.
I've got a great cell phone.